Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. AITA for using my husband's savings to repurchase the bike that he took from our daughter. She was happy and thrilled to be able to ride her new bike, which was a gift from her uncle, my brother, for her 11th birthday. The bike had been on her wish list for quite some time, and she couldn't wait to get on it. I discovered a few days earlier that my husband had phoned my brother to locate the receiver for the bike, returned it to the store, and pocketed the money while my daughter was at school. The bike was at home. When my daughter and I returned home, she burst into tears when she realized the bike had disappeared from her sight. I was home when this happened, and my husband told me that he had returned the bike and got money to spend on something useful for the family, since the bike had just served as a distraction and was no longer needed now that it was winter. I got upset and lost my cool with him, telling him that it wasn't his, that it didn't come from him, and that he hadn't paid for it, and that he thus had no right to handle it. Especially since our daughter had wanted it for a long time and my brother was generous enough to purchase it for her despite the fact that he was barely scraping by. He claimed he had spent the money on housekeeping expenses and didn't have any money left, but I was aware of the money he was stashing away in his bedroom that he had forbidden me from taking, so I took some of it and went out the next day to repurchase the bike while he was away. He was not home when I went out to repurchase the bike, but he was out when I went out to repurchase the bike. After he found my deception, he punished me severely, telling me that I should not have touched the money he was saving for himself. It wasn't much money, so my response was to explain that I had to do so in order to repurchase the bike he had stolen from under our daughter's feet. He claimed that he didn't keep the money for himself and instead used it to buy necessities for our family. But he was the one who stole the bike in the first place and was ultimately responsible for getting it back. He screamed and yelled at me for more than 10 minutes before going outside and lighting up. She asked why her father was angry and if she no longer wanted the bike if her father didn't want her to have it. But I told her that she didn't and advised her not to feel guilty about it and instead to enjoy riding her bike instead. The questions from my husband haven't stopped, and he's labeled me a thief and a delinquent for taking money out of his savings account while he was away. I told him he shouldn't have touched the bike, and that was the end of the story. He's labeled me a thief and a delinquent for sneaking money out of his savings account. You want an AITA for the way I went about getting back my bike. Story 2. AITA for wanting to enforce my boundary. My husband G, 30 years old, a man, and I, 28 years old, a woman, have been married for 2 years and have been together for around 6 years. We've had a terrific run so far, but there's one area in which we've always disagreed: motorbikes. We had a long-standing disagreement over motorcycles. The fact that he wants to get his motorbike license came up early in our relationship, which was a good sign. The next day, I sat with him and explained that it was and would always be an absolute no-go for me, but that we had only been together for a month, and that I would understand if he wanted to end things cleanly then and then. He asked some more time, but in the end, he said that he was prepared to give everything up in exchange for a chance with me. Let's fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. When he arrived home from work, he had a noticeable agitation in his voice. After many attempts to engage with him, I gave up and he started ranting about how all of his friends are planning a large bike trip for next summer, and that they have told him he should obtain his license and come along with them. His other comments included the assertion that he had always been incredibly supportive of me, which is true, and that this was his one dream that I was taking from him. I didn't know what to say in answer to this, so I merely inquired as to if he was serious. He agreed with me. When he asked me why, I told him that he was a big boy and that he could do anything he wanted. However, I warned him that if he went on that trip, he would come home to an empty house. He has packed his possessions and is temporarily residing with friends in a hotel nearby. Is it conceivable that I am the bad person in this situation? I was always very clear about my limits, and I gave him plenty of opportunity to leave if he didn't like it or didn't want his boundaries to be violated in any manner. Since he left following our disagreement, his friends, all of whom are blatantly against me, have begun posting divorce jokes on social media at it. I went to make a little adjustment to the post to answer some of the often asked questions in reaction to it. What is it about this boundary that makes it so challenging for me? During the period between the ages of 6 and 19, I suffered the deaths of 6 family members and close acquaintances. He's also been aware of it from the first time we brought it up in conversation. So why am I blaming him for my trauma? And why am I not getting treatment for my anxiety symptoms? Since I was 8 years old, I've been undergoing various sorts of therapy to improve my health. Despite the fact that my anxiety has lessened over the years and that I have sought support with other issues, this has continued to this day. However, it is no longer just for that purpose. My most recent therapy session took place last week, and another is scheduled for the following week on Monday. I also never had the impression that I was blaming anybody or anything for my experience. I spoke about my feelings in therapy, but I made a pact with myself that I would never put myself in a position where I may be killed in a bike accident. Yes, I am fully aware that anybody may die at any time for any reason at any point in time. When we first spoke about it, he inquired as to whether I was interested in participating in any extreme sports that he thought I might like. Together, we've gone diving. He's been bouldering on a regular basis, and for his birthday last year, I got him skydiving training. Bikes, on the other hand, are and will continue to be strictly forbidden. Alternatively, is there another way out of this situation? I inquired as to whether he would be comfortable traveling in another vehicle. It's not the same, he scoffed before continuing. What is the point of giving him an ultimatum? This is the point at which I made a tremendous blunder, and I freely own and accept my mistake. My intention was not to issue a threat or an ultimatum, but rather to simply report the facts as they were known to me at the time. It was not done in order to intimidate or manipulate him. It was just the truth in this case. But I'm aware that it comes off as dreadful, and I'll make every effort to make amends as soon as I can. Update: it's been nearly a month since my initial post, and although the ultimate outcome was NaH, the comments were incredibly different, and I read virtually all of them. A special thanks to everyone who was able to explain why they believed I was the AH without resorting to insults. Now for the latest news. The next day, I messaged G and told him I wanted to get down with him and speak about things properly. He responded he'd enjoy it as well and went home. I apologized for how I conveyed what I said, while also stating unequivocally that although my delivery might be improved, to put it gently, the message itself remains unchanged. He apologized for snapping at me and claimed that he understood. This is how I would characterize what transpired after a lengthy discussion. His coworkers invited him on the vacation, but he declined and explained why. They began to mock him about being whipped and what it felt like when the wife wore the trousers. This continued on for a few weeks, at which point he decided to inform them that he would accompany them since he put me in my place. But the mocking continued, and he began to feel terrible, making him just as upset as he was that night. We weren't sure how to go after the discussion, so we decided it would be best if we went to a professional jointly to work things out. Counseling was a benefit, in that it let us both verbalize certain things that we couldn't really voice out loud previously. There was a lot of emotion and tears, but it was really beneficial for both of us to truly comprehend what the other was going through. He also had some private sessions and made the decision to cut himself apart from his pals permanently. We also understood that our neighborhood is incredibly motorcycle-centric, and that if we wanted to be together, we should definitely relocate. He sat me down last week and informed me that he had been seeking for employment and had received a pretty fantastic offer from a firm about 2,000 miles away from where we reside. He asked if he could give his notice and whether we could begin searching for a property in the vicinity. I work from home, so relocating isn't a big deal for me, and we were able to locate a nice-looking property near to his workplace. Nothing is set in stone just yet, but things are looking promising.